Hey, and welcome back to Bain's Bites. I'm Bain. So we went over to a little European grocery store called Aldi we have here in the neighborhood. You may have heard of it. They're getting more and more popular around the country, and we were just browsing and shopping through the aisles, and inspired us for the video today. We actually found a pre-made coffee dry rub. And so I've been wanting to do a pulled pork for a video for quite a while. I've done a handful of pulled porks in my day out on the Traeger, but everybody does a good barbecue pulled pork. And I can show you how to do it. It takes a couple hours. Get a big, huge pulled pork, and then my wife and I were stuck here having to try to eat pulled pork over and over and over. So we wanted to do something a little bit different today. We're actually going to do a coffee rub pulled pork. We actually picked up what's called a picnic roast, and it's a boneless section of a pork shoulder. This one's almost right about 4 pounds. I trimmed maybe a 1/4 pound off of fat. I went through and cut out some big hard fat that wouldn't render and cut the fat cap down just a little bit. I've got the Traeger fired up to 250 degrees. I've got a little pan. I actually am going to use my trivet from my pressure cooker, which fits perfect in here. We're going to put a little bit of apple cider vinegar and some water down. But to get this little picnic roast set up, instead of using mustard, I'm going to use just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. However you like to say it. Not a lot, just a little bit to get a moisture coating all over it. We'll get it rubbed down, flipped over. Open it up. You can see I kind of opened some of it up to get some of the big fat out of there. And we're just going to rub a little bit in. It's not going to do a lot for the flavor, but it's just going to help our coffee rub stick really well to its stick. Get this cleaned up, wash my hands, and we'll get the coffee seasoning on it. So when we saw this in the aisles at Aldi, we really thought it was interesting. It really caught my attention because it's like your basic barbecue rub. It's got your salt, your pepper, your sugar, chili powder, cinnamon, clove, your onion, your garlic, but then it does have coffee and a little bit of cocoa. So we're gonna give it a try. I've done coffee rub chicken, I've done coffee rub steaks, and they're really good. They sound kind of weird, but they've always turned out really, really great. And I've got a pretty good feeling that on a good pulled pork, this will work great for what we're looking for. So even though it's a picnic roast and not a full-blown pork shoulder or pork butt, it's still a big piece of meat and it can take a lot of rub. So we're gonna hit it pretty good. Get the backside first, all up in there, and I'll use one hand to make sure it's got a good covering in there. I'm gonna flip this over. I'm not injecting it. I'm not marinating it, nothing crazy. We're just keeping it simple today. It smells really good. You get that clove and that coffee, a little bit of cinnamon. This is definitely different from your typical pulled pork. But we'll move it around, make sure we get all the sides, get everything in there real good. So now we've got our picnic roast good and seasoned. I'm gonna let this hit while the Traeger finally comes up to its full temp at 250 degrees. And before I move it to my pan, I'm gonna take a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Oh, let's give him a shake. Good stuff with the thick stuff at the bottom. And we'll put in, let's see, maybe a 1/4 cup. Not too much, just for a little bit of moisture. And to go with that, I've just got a little glass of water. Nothing fancy, no juice, no craziness here, just keeping it simple. Just enough to get a layer in the bottom and keep some moisture in that pan. The last thing we're gonna do is grab our roast, move it over here, tuck it all in tight. While I let this sit, I'm gonna let it sit for about 10 more minutes. I'm gonna get one of my meter probes out, stick it right in the heart of it, and I'm looking for about 155, 160 degrees. Once we get there, we'll bring it back in. We're gonna wrap it with foil, and then we're gonna bring it back up to our final temp so it's good and tender and ready to fall apart and be juicy and delicious. Now after about an hour or two, I'm gonna go check it. If it's looking a little bit dry, I may spritz it with a little bit of water or water and apple cider vinegar mix, something like that, just to keep some moisture on the skin and let it build a good mark. That's about it. Let's get it on the Traeger. All right, so it's been about 3 hours at 250 degrees. I've been watching it on the meter app, and we just passed over 150 degrees. We spritzed it once about two and a half hours in, something around there, just to keep a little moisture on the skin. I just checked it. It's got a great bark. So let's get out there, let's get it off. We'll bring it back in here, we'll wrap it up tight with some foil. We'll throw it back on the Traeger and run it to that 200 to 205 degree mark so we can pull it off and make it great. That looks great. So let's get it off. Keep some heat in the Traeger while we go in, get it wrapped up tight, and get it right back out here. All right, so you can see we've got a beautiful bark on there. That coffee rub is good and dark. I'm just gonna take a big piece of aluminum foil, wrap it right here around the pan, stick the probe through so I can keep reading my ambient temperature on the grill, and we'll watch it. Don't know exactly how long it's gonna take, but I'm imagining once we wrap it up and get it sealed up tight, it's gonna start cooking pretty quick. And once we hit that 200 to 205 degree mark, we're gonna pull it off, drop it in the cooler, and let it rest for an hour or so. And then we'll dig in and see how we did. All right, well, it's been about 6.5 hours on this little tiny pork roast, but we spritzed it, we covered it. It just hit 203 degrees, so I'm gonna pull it off, shut the Traeger into shutdown cycle. I'll grab my hot gloves, put these on. We're gonna grab this off the grill, transfer it straight into the cooler. We're gonna pop the top on here. We're gonna let this sit for about an hour, hour and a half. Just let it rest, let it mellow. It's been cooking for quite a while, so we'll check back in with y'all in just a little bit. Well, we finally got it done. We're all set. Here's this coffee crusted picnic roast of a pork shoulder. It smells amazing. It looks really good. The bark is dark and rich. The smell is incredible. Now all we've got left to do is grab the bear paws and we'll go ahead and shred it up and see what it looks like. Pulls apart super easy, super tender. Just give it a rough chop kind of with these just so I can try a couple pieces of it, see how we did. It's still hot, I'll tell you what. Very tender. Oh, it smells so good. So we got it pulled into a pretty rough chop and different pieces sectioned out. It looks great. It's definitely tender. I thought something a little different like this Cattlemen's Carolina Tangy Gold sauce. It's kind of a honey mustard based barbecue sauce, just like the coffee rub. Something a little different, something we'd try it with. So we'll go ahead and grab a couple pieces and give it a try and see how it is. Let's see, right here. We'll pull this one off and separate it. Try it without the sauce at first. A little bit of bark. Very different. Very, very good though. Savory, a little bit more spice and depth to it. Not that overly sweet or vinegary pulled pork you typically find at most places, and that's really good. Well, let's grab another piece. A little bit of bark again, 'cause that's my favorite part. See if we dip it in here and what that does to it. And that sets it off. Yep, that's a great combo. Mix it together with a little bit of sauce, throw it on a bun, however you like to eat your pulled pork. Throw it on some nachos. Haven't seen that, be sure to check it out. But just something a little different, something unique and really fun. Hope you guys liked the video. If you do, be sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, y'all have a great day, because I gotta do some work on this stuff right here. It's time. I've been waiting way too long not to enjoy this.